South Korea is becoming home to classical geniuses. Pianist Lim Yun-chan, violinist Yang In-mo, and cellist Choi Ha-young are just three of some 37 South Koreans that recently grabbed awards at international music competitions, according to the Kumho Cultural Foundation. Now, 18-year-old Im made headlines around the world last week as the youngest pianist to win the world-renowned Cliburn International Piano Competition. Violinist Yang In-mo, meanwhile, became the first South Korean to win the Sibelius Violin Competition, and cellist Choi Ha-young won the Queen Elisabeth competition. Those in the classical circle are even calling it a Korean classical phenomenon, praising young Korean musicians who are making their names known on the global stage. For more on this, we are now joined by Professor Lee Kang-ho from Korea National University of Arts. Welcome, Professor.
Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's start off with you and your story. I mean, we know that you are a renowned cellist yourself. So tell us about what it was like to be a cellist in your time compared to now.
You make it sound as if
I'm sorry. Excuse me for that. I didn't mean to sound like that, but yes.
In my young
yes, in your younger days, yes.
I must say, in my youth as well, we had our idols like Kyung Chung and Young Woo Kim and all these wonderful musicians who made us to be very proud to be Koreans, right? But I suppose the biggest difference is that they were, although they are Koreans, they were educated mostly in the US or in Europe. They left probably in their middle school, high school years, and made their career there. In my case as well, I left Korea when I was in middle school. So my schooling was mostly in the United States.
Okay.
I suppose that is really the biggest difference. I suppose, looking back.
Right.
My younger days.
In your younger days. Well, I mean, then how has the industry or the atmosphere itself has changed, do you think, in your point of view, for the younger musicians, classical musicians now?
Sure. I think nowadays, one has a lot more opportunities, such as the internet and YouTube, etc. Even if they are studying in Korea, they are able to experience and witness what's going on worldwide. For example, Yun-chan's performance at the Cliburn competition, I mean, it was going live on YouTube.
Yes.
I myself watched it, and now the YouTube view is what, 3 or 4 million,
it's
right?
skyrocketed.
So,
yes. Yes, most definitely.
I suppose that is the biggest difference, because when I was young, in order to get a recording of a piece that I wanted to listen to, I had to talk to somebody who lived in the States or in Europe to get a copy, whereas now with the one click, you can actually hear sometimes even a live performance of it.
Right, and they have many more channels, I guess, to make themselves known.
Exactly, yeah, sure. There are many more platforms through which they can show what they're capable of.
Right. Well, like we mentioned earlier, pianist Lim Yun-chan won the 16th Cliburn Piano Competition as the youngest one to win that gold medal, right? I mean, first, tell us about this competition. I mean, how prestigious is this competition in the world of piano?
Sure. I myself is a cellist, but I can certainly tell you about Cliburn competition. It's one of the most prestigious and biggest competition in the world. Also, it was actually named after an American pianist. His name is Cliburn, and he was the first winner of the Tchaikovsky competition in Russia, and it's quite meaningful, especially for the Americans back then, because it was during the Cold War, and that an American can go to Moscow and winning this, I think, meant more than just winning a music competition. To honor that, I think 1958, to honor his triumph, I think Cliburn Foundation was formed, and they decided to establish a competition in honor of him. I think the first competition was in '62.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, and it's always in Texas.
Okay. All right. Well, were there any other Koreans who won this competition? Not like the gold medal, but other medals as well?
Actually, the previous winner, Son Ye-gun, is also Korean. But before that, I believe one of our graduates, 손여름, won second or third, and going back further, I believe Haesun Paek, who also won, may have won prize.
So we do go way back with the Korean musicians winning that competition. Now, does winning of Im in this competition, what significance or the meaning does it carry, this win for South Koreans and classical music?
For me, actually, a person who's in this industry or in this field, rather than it being a great news, for me it's an affirmation of how well Korean musicians have been doing. For example, in the world of piano, we had people like Sunwoo Kim who won this competition more than a decade ago, and Ji Young-moon who won Busoni and Geneva. Even last year, Jae-hong Park who won the Busoni competition. These are all major competitions, and to have these winners, and especially now with Im Yun-chan, with this electrifying performance, getting all this attention, I feel like it's the successful development of our classical education and performance is being, in a way, reaffirmed.
Well, this is on a different note, but because you're a cellist yourself, I mean, we talked about Choi Ha-young winning that Queen Elisabeth competition. Tell us more about that competition.
Sure. Queen Elizabeth competition also is a major competition, right? It's funded by the royal family of Belgium, and it used to be that only piano, violin, and voice were the competing categories. About the one that Ha-young won is actually the second time for the cello. Cello was added at a later time.
Way later.
And I think it's as a cellist, I think it's wonderful. She did not attend our university, but she attended. She used to attend our prep division, KNIGA, Korea National Institute for the Gifted in Arts, and left to England to study during her middle school years. So in a way, although she's not a graduate of ours, we are connected. I had a student of mine, Woo Chan-jung, who was also in the finals. There are actually quite a few Korean cellists in the finals as well. So I was very pleased and proud.
Yeah, you must have been very proud. I mean, going back to study, many of the musicians studying overseas, I think what stood out for Im Yun-chan was that he was educated here, right here in Korea, and never studied overseas. I mean, and I think we know that you being at the professor of the same university that he is attending, Korea National University of Arts, what does this mean to you?
Of course, I'm very proud and pleased. But at the same time, the people that I mentioned, Sunwook and Yeoreum and who else did I mention?
So many students.
Yeah, they actually won these major competitions while they are studying in Korea, and they're educated only in Korea. So, in a way, being able to succeed in the classical music world and being educated only in Korea, I don't think it's a big news for us anymore.
Right.
But at the same time, I think Yun-chan, a lot of people were very impressed by not only his ability to be a wonderful pianist, but to understand the style and the interpretation of many different pieces from different time periods. I think that's what impressed a lot of the audiences and the jury members.
All right. And how did Im enroll in your school? I mean, was it a different process, early admissions or gifted program?
Sure. As I mentioned, we have a prep division, and it's in a way even more competitive to get into than our university because of the limited spots. And you can enroll, we can audition to be enrolled as early as 8 or 9.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's it's not a school. It's they only come maybe on weekends for the for the applied area lessons and theory and stuff like that. And there's another track for the university. This is for the prep division. For the university, we have a special opportunity for people who excel in this area to get into university even if they don't have a high school diploma.
Okay.
Meaning, as long as they have graduated from middle school, and if they are exceptionally good, that they can apply and be admitted to the university.
Wow.
And Yun-chan went through the prep division, and after he won the Isang-yun competition, he auditioned and was admitted 2 years ago. And so if he were, I think, in high school, he would be probably a senior in high school.
Okay,
But he entered the college that much earlier than others.
Wow, he is a gifted one.
Yes,
for
he
sure. Okay, so K-classics, or Korean classical music, obviously, has been gaining popularity even before we have been talking about this. But obviously, there are more people now calling it even like K-classics phenomenon, right? So how is your school's education system different from other musical schools here in South Korea or other musical academies?
I think having a very successful prep division helps because we are able to identify young talents and start them at a very early stage and make sure that they are taken care of and they're educated in the most, most efficient and proper way possible. Number two is maybe it's the ecosystem that the school and current Korean music world provides, because it takes more than just hard practice or one particular teacher and one particular student. One has to be able to play a lot of chamber music and interact with other musicians and grow. And I think the education system in Korea, I don't know if you know that or not, but the university was actually founded by the government. And 30 years ago, the government actually thought it's an area that they really wanted to promote and really foster as one of the areas that we can really excel in. I think so. Systematically, I think we are providing the best sort of a very fertile ground for the young artists to thrive.
Right, and you have those eyes to find them as well, I guess.
Sure.
All right, well, with all this good news, though, I'm sure there are some obstacles and hurdles that stand in the way for classic musicians. So tell us more about those.
Sure. In some ways, I think it's a classic example of the supply actually growing faster than the demand domestically, because there are so many wonderful musicians, and but after they have graduated and etc., what do? So several ways I think we need to overcome this. One is that, which is already happening, a lot of the artists, Korean artists, are finding their places overseas. They sometimes join top orchestras, or they settle in Europe or in America performing there. That's one way. Number two is, I think our society and audience must mature as we are also developing these top musicians. In France, they don't define middle class with the amount of income you earn, but they say middle class is someone who is able to speak a foreign language, able to play an instrument, is able to play a sport and really enjoy it, and is able to participate in community service. And it's in a way, culturally a much more mature way of looking at how one country ought to go. And in Korea, I think culturally, as we develop our taste for these things, in some ways, maybe that will increase the demand to meet the supply.
Hopefully.
And I think that actually may provide healthier and happier Korea.
Okay, well, where do you think this industry is headed then, if you are hoping for more demand, I mean, as an industry as a whole?
Sure. I think we are actually, I mean, as you said, the power of Kclassics, we are doing exceptionally well, and it's being acknowledged worldwide. I believe that we'll continue to be good, successful at this. But not only nowadays us going, well, how it used to be, we going going overseas to study, but now I think we are slowly attracting people to come to Korea to study.
Right. That sounds
and instead of following the standards of the West, that we are able to actually set new standards.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, that would be a road that we would like to see.
That's what we hope for.
All of us going, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your insight today, Professor.
Thank you.